a decision that blocked the Biden administration's eviction plan. Under my watch here in the state of New York, we're not going to exacerbate what is already a crisis in terms of the homelessness problem. We are not going to allow people who no fault of their own, lost income, not able to pay, and facing eviction. We are not going to allow that to happen here in the great state of New York. We're not going to abandon our neighbors in need, especially since the state of New York failed in its responsibility to get the money that was allocated by Congress out to the people in need earlier this summer. Therefore, we want to expand the safety net for people who qualify for rental and landlord assistance, and we can no longer wait, nor can they. I also need to assure people, and I've heard from many, many elected officials across the state, that we need to amend the open meetings law to make meetings more accessible, more safe, including those with disabilities across the state. So we need to address a situation where we need to continue what had been in place during the pandemic to allow the meetings to continue, but not in person. I also have an agenda item that's very important to me, and that is to jumpstart the long overdue decisions pertaining to establishing cannabis in the state of New York. I'll be appointing my nominations to start the process to legally produce and distribute cannabis in the state of New York. There was no reason why simple announcements in terms of who the executive director is and who the chairperson is were not done in time, but I'm going to make up for that lost time, and I want those decisions made, and I've made the decisions as to who I want, but they need confirmation from the legislature. So it is my goal to extend the eviction moratorium to expand rental assistance programs from today to January 15th. We also know that landlords are struggling, and we need to make sure that small businesses are protected as well. And that's why I will be starting today, and I'll be signing a proclamation momentarily. Pursuant to the power vested in me by Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution, I'm hereby convening the Senate and the Assembly of the State of New York in an extraordinary session to commence tomorrow, September 1 at noon. The focus will be narrow. As I mentioned, it'll address the rental and eviction crisis. It'll address the open meetings law to allow more access to meetings, and it'll also deal with the freeing up of the cannabis program, which is long overdue. So I know we call it an extraordinary session. It is indeed extraordinary, but we've gone through extraordinary times, and we need to take steps now to protect the people of the state of New York. And I want to let them know that we're going to continue fighting for them in partnership with our legislative leaders. And again, I thank them for their willingness to come back during this time and to be willing to roll up their sleeves and get the job done for the people of the state of New York. That is something I promised, and it is a promise I intend to keep. At this time, I'll take any questions from the media. Bill?
What are we doing to the open meetings law? This seems like, are we just going to use a message of necessity to pass a change to roll this back and keep the people from being allowed to attend in-person meetings as they've been?
No, we need to get back to a situation where they can safely allow people to participate remotely. This is, again, temporary. It was put in place to protect people who want to continue participating. I've heard from too many elected officials at the county and local levels that they just want this in place while we are still in the throes of a pandemic to ensure that people with disabilities and others can engage and participate in local government remotely. This is temporary, but it's something that is, again, we're not through the pandemic yet. We have to recognize that a lot of initiatives put in place last year have expired, and we have to take this action to reactivate them. Yes, Bernard.
Governor, how do you anticipate with this extension of the eviction moratorium being able to withstand a legal challenge? Already the Rent Stabilization Association, a group that represents a ton of landlords down in the city, has said they are threatening a lawsuit if this is extended, and especially if there's not recourse for landlords. So number one, how do you expect to handle that legal challenge? And also earlier today during your gaggle, you said that this is about getting money to landlords. So do you intend on changing the program and getting the money out?
No, the money is intended for landlords. The money is absolutely intended for landlords. They're the ones who are owed the rent. And so we'll also be ensuring that in order to just address the rendering of the Supreme Court so we don't have to go back to court again, we'll be making sure that there's due process provisions that the Supreme Court said were initially lacking in the New York law. That is something that's going to be addressed in this as well. So we'll make it as airtight as you can. Certainly people can do it, they will, but we also want the landlords to know that their concerns are also front of center. And people have to reframe their image of landlords. Many times, these are small business owners. They have proprietors of a small business, a bodega or laundromat or hair salon on the first floor of their business, and above they rent out to other people to bring in income. So it's really a small business crisis. The people that are behind in their rent because of loss of job, the landlords are the ones who are suffering, and I want to make sure that we wipe the slate clean for the landlords and the tenants and let people start with a new start. Let them start with a clean slate and move beyond this pandemic and get people back to work, get them back to be able to pay for their own rent. And again, this is a temporary safety net that we need to extend because the pandemic is not over. Zach Williams?
Will there be any additional appointments that come before the state senate tomorrow for DFS or the MTA?
At this moment, I'm limiting my appointments to the Cannabis Board. I want to make sure that this is a quick process, it's a clean process. I'll be announcing my other appointments, and we have some outstanding candidates I'm really excited about, but we'll also have them in an acting role until they can receive their appropriate confirmation in January. Yes, Morgan.
How are you guys going to address the hardship issue, especially since that part was overturned by the Supreme Court? How are you guys going to make sure that doesn't happen again if it is challenged in court?
No, we're prepared to address that, and that's what our teams are working on. We have our legal teams working together right now to identify all the restrictions and the shortcomings that were determined by the Supreme Court and make sure we address them. So we're going to be also looking at, we'll be making an announcement very soon in terms of what has been finally agreed to, and I want the leaders with me at that time, so a number of items have to be negotiated with them. But I want to tell them again, thank you for being at our side through this process, and together we're going to get this done. But all the details will be forthcoming as soon as this session commences very shortly. Yes.
Governor, is there a way to prevent people from getting evicted in this time, when it expires and when you're trying to get this extended? Is there anything the state can do?
Yes, there is, and I'm so glad you asked. And I'm calling on all of our media outlets to help get this message out. Anyone who applies for and qualifies for the ERAP program, which is the Rental Assistance Program, automatically when you apply, there can be no eviction process commenced for a solid year. You are protected the day you file that information. So what we have seen over this summer and why there has been a challenge for all of us in getting that money out, or is there a challenge in the past, is that we have to find the landlords, and there's sometimes you can't have the landlords, they have to be involved in the process. So what I'm going to be announcing also is that we're going to have a SWAT team approach to literally go to people's homes and activate people like the people who are involved in the census. We had a lot of workers. We'll hire people. We'll send them door to door. We'll work with the city of New York and all the cities in particular in partnership and find out how we can literally take the information to people's doors, meet the landlords, meet the tenants, get them to fill this out, and that'll stay any legal proceedings against them for a solid year. There's been a real problem. There's money to be had. I want to get that out. And part of it is that the people don't know about this. And also there could be language barriers. And so I want to make sure that we're sensitive to that the people who show up at the door speak the language of the person inside, the occupant, and let them know that this is a program that was put in place to help them. There is a tremendous amount of money in this program right now. We'll be talking about whether it needs more to address other income thresholds, but all that's being developed. So I need people's help to get that information out there and how we can ensure people have the security of knowing they're not going to be thrown out in the street, especially parents, single parents with kids. They are so stressed out today. I can feel it. I can feel what's going on throughout this state because the moratorium expired today, the eviction moratorium expired today, and that's why I'm calling for this extraordinary session, and it is extraordinary, a session to bring people together, our legislators, to solve this for the people of New York.
Last question.
Governor, the legislative leaders have the ability to bring lawmakers back tomorrow on their own, so why call the extraordinary session? Did legislative leaders ask you to take that specific step?
We have been working together since before I was sworn in to figure out how we can make sure this money gets out to people, but that also the Supreme Court happened in the meantime, so we could no longer rely on an extension without making sure that we do this together. I wanted to make sure that we put a an exclamation mark on how committed we are to coming together and to streamline the process. I determined that I have the authority to be able to call them. They support this, they're willing to do this, but also it is a very narrow scope of work. That is what my responsibility is, to narrow the topics that will be discussed during this session. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The rental assistance program to help renters and landlords. Also making sure that we address the open meetings law, which I've heard from all over the state. And thirdly, to finally get the cannabis program underway by announcing who the chairperson and the executive director will be. So at this time, I'm going to walk over and officially sign the proclamation, which authorizes the authority to call this extraordinary session for September 1 at 12 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you very much, everyone. Pursuant to the power vested in me by Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution, I hereby convene the Senate and the Assembly of the State of New York in extraordinary session at the Capitol in the City of Albany on the first day of September 2021 at 12 p.m. for the purpose of: 1, considering legislation I will submit with respect to extending the eviction moratorium for residential and commercial tenants, fully funding and broadening the eligibility for rental assistance to allow tenants to remain in their homes, and ensure payments to landlords